Hey everyone! For those of you who don't know me, my name is Faizah Naqvi and I'm a junior. Today I'll be presenting on the Uyghur cultural genocide. So before I begin, I just want to briefly mention the program through which I did my research, which was the Stanford University China Scholars Program. It's a pre-collegiate course offered by the Stanford Program on International and Cross-Cultural Education, and the course helps contextualize the research that I'll be presenting on today. So if this sounds like it's something that'll interest you, you can check out the link over here. They also have programs on Japan and Korea. So first off, who are Uyghurs? Uyghurs are ethnically Turkic Muslims and are one of the 56 officially recognized Chinese minority groups. They descend from Turkic trading groups on the Silk Road who settled in Xinjiang, which is an autonomous region in northwest China. So if you see on this map here, the dark brown portion of China is Xinjiang, and the capital is Urumqi. In the news, articles about Uyghurs revolve around their cultural genocide. So today, I wanted to take a brief moment to appreciate who the Uyghurs are as a people, because their culture is just as rich and unique as Han Chinese culture, and I think it deserves to be appreciated as such. So on the top left corner, you can see two Uyghur men in a street market cooking traditional Uyghur street market food. On the top right, you can see Uyghur women wearing traditional Uyghur garb. On the bottom left, you can see a couple of Uyghur men singing a traditional Uyghur folk song. And on the bottom right, you can see Xinjiang lamb kebabs. And so a lot of times in the news, Uyghurs and Han Chinese are also mentioned as kind of completely separate populations, which isn't necessarily true because there are a lot of Uyghur Muslims who have assimilated themselves into Han Chinese culture. And Xinjiang lamb kebabs are a great example of that because they're really popular with Han Chinese and can be found in any city in China, basically. So another example of Uyghur assimilation into Han Chinese culture is Merdin Gapar, who was the model for the Chinese retail company Taobao, which is basically the equivalent of Amazon for us in America. In January 2020, he was forcefully escorted from his home in Foshan, China to Xinjiang. So remember him because he'll be important a little bit later on. So what exactly is happening in Xinjiang? Starting in 2014, Uyghurs are forced into re-education camps where they are kept under constant surveillance. People are often beaten, some people are tortured, and some people are even killed. In 2017, the development of re-education camps and detainment increased drastically, and although there are only 27 officially recognized camps, experts estimate the number is closer to 1,200. And so if you remember earlier, I mentioned Merdin Gapar. So he was escorted from his home in Foshan, China to a re-education camp in Xinjiang. And so because of some health issues, he was briefly given access to his phone and to an isolated cell. And so he used that time to take some videos and collect evidence of what was happening in these camps. So this is a picture of him, and you can see he's actually cuffed to the bed. And in the video, you can hear in the background people are screaming. And so after this information was passed on to the BBC in June 2020, he was never heard from again. The retail company Taobao actually denied that he ever worked for them and completely erased all of his ads that he modeled for. So why are people being forced into these re-education camps? So since Xinjiang became part of China in the 18th century, its rich natural resources like oil reserves and an environment ideal for growing cotton make it an essential part of economic growth. However, Uyghurs are also very fiercely independent, and some have been lobbying for independence as a state. And so to fully take control of Xinjiang and its economic advantages, the government instituted re-education camps as a way to quell social unrest. So how are people being forced into these re-education camps? In 2014, the Chinese government began cracking down on Xinjiang, so security in the region increased, as did surveillance. And so through the surveillance, as well as through personal handheld devices like phones and laptops, as well as iPads, iPods, stuff like that, the Chinese government has basically collected all this data and put it into this huge database where a person's face through facial recognition technology is connected to their address if they have relatives in countries that are considered extremist countries, if they've done extremist activities, which is stuff like praying or going to the mosque or reading the Islamic book, the Quran, or like having a beard in accordance with Islamic tradition. And so these people who have done no more than following their own religion have been snatched from their homes, pulled aside on roads, and forced into re-education camps because of these huge databases of information. So what is the Chinese government's official stance on these camps? So at first in 2014, and even when the camps drastically increased their activity in 2017, government officials denied their existence. In 2018 and 2019, officials began calling them vocational and education and training programs, and media was allowed to the camps, but it was very limited. So if you see on the left here, this is a Chinese government official, and he's holding up his hands to a BBC reporter because he wants them to stop recording. Basically, news reporters like the BBC reporters who have taken this photo, they're only allowed into certain areas. They basically are followed by Chinese officials wherever they go. And then they're also told to stop recording at random times, and their cameras and such are subject to searches. BBC satellite imagery also shows that before they went to visit these camps, there was stuff like barbed wire and watchtowers up. But when they were there, they didn't see any of that. And then after they left, they saw it go back up again. So after media like the BBC and the New York Times came poking around, and they were like, okay, so these are re-education camps. What happens after people graduate? So basically the Chinese government goes, okay, they're free. And so this is actually not true. People from these camps, once they have graduated, they're still under technological surveillance. And instead they're forced into factories that are merely blocks away from these re-education camps. And so only about 2/3 of the people that are funneled into these camps are paid. And if they are paid, they're paid less than half of minimum wage. So minimum wage in Xinjiang is 14 yuan, which is about 2.16 US dollars. And they're paid 85 cents per an hour. So this is some satellite imagery from the BBC in the city Kuka, Xinjiang in 2017. And so on the right, we can see there's been a construction site marked off. So this is 1 year later in 2018, and we can see that there has been a re-education camp that's been built there. And I just want to point out that Chinese officials are saying that these re-education camps are for rehabilitation and learning purposes. But their satellite imagery clearly picks up on watchtowers and internal security walls. So these are clearly built like prison areas, and that's how they function as well, even if the Chinese government is denying it. So this is 1 year later in 2019, and like I mentioned before, we see factories pop up shortly after the Chinese government has claimed people are graduating from these camps. And so if we see in the next image, this red area in the center is just people being funneled from the re-education camps straight into factories. So no, they're not free. They're still under surveillance. The only difference is now they're just doing hard manual labor for half the minimum wage. Okay, so here are some statistics just to stress how important this issue is. So about 1,800,000 people have been detained in camps since April 2017. For context, that's roughly the size of the entire population of Phoenix, Arizona. Experts estimate that there are about 1,200 camps in Xinjiang, and the Chinese government is spending about $3 billion on security in Xinjiang annually. Okay, so what are the implications for us as US citizens and for the world? China has been shipping surveillance technology used in Xinjiang to other countries, marketing it as safe city technology, which is basically the idea that citizens need to be protected from themselves. And so as a rising global power, China's actions set a precedent for other countries. For example, Zimbabwe, which has been engaging in heavy technology trade with China, has been blocking social media and following China's actions in the internet and keeping its citizens under heavy surveillance and also promoting authoritarianism. So the United States is actually one of the few countries that took action against China's actions in Xinjiang beyond just verbal condemnation. They issued some economic sanctions. So what can we do? In March 2020, the Congressional Executive Commission on China and the Australian Strategic Policy Institute found about 83 companies using forced labor from Xinjiang in their product lines. So below I've listed 5 of the most well-known ones, like Coca-Cola, Apple, Nike, Adidas, and Tommy Hilfiger. And so what we can do as high school students is we can make sure that we're not supporting companies that are using forced labor in their product lines. For example, the next time you need maybe new sneakers, don't buy it from Nike or Adidas, buy it from something like Reebok. Right, so for more information on companies that are engaged in activities in Xinjiang, you can visit the website listed down below. So that's it for today. I hope you guys learned something. If you have any questions, there should be a Google form you can fill out, and I'll answer those in Monday meeting later today. Here are some discussion questions, and thank you for listening.